Ellison's cave tragedy. On February 12, 2011, 10 students from the University of Florida. 5 were male and 5 were female. The group's leader was Grant Lockenbach, 20. His close friend, Michael Peary, 18, was also part of the group. Both had prior caving experience. They had driven over 400 miles to reach the cave in Walker County, Georgia. The day before, they checked into a hotel near Pigeon Mountain. The next morning, they left their phones behind and packed only caving essentials. They wore casual clothing, shorts and t-shirts, despite cold winter temperatures. After hiking for an hour, they reached a narrow cave entrance. One by one, they squeezed inside. They explored briefly and stayed near the upper section of the cave. The temperature inside was extremely cold, especially near water sources. During the trip, a backpack fell into a vertical shaft called Warm-Up Pit. The pit is 125 feet deep, with cold water and a strong waterfall inside. The bag held essential gear. Grant decided to rappel down to retrieve it. He tied into a rope system and descended. As he neared the bottom, the waterfall became louder. The cold intensified. While avoiding the water, he became entangled in his rope. His harness locked up. He was stuck, partially suspended and drenched by the freezing waterfall. He began yelling for help. Michael Peary volunteered to go after him. He rappelled using the same rope setup. When he reached Grant, he found him tangled and unresponsive. Michael attempted to assist, but he also became entangled and immobilized in the freezing water. Both were now trapped under the waterfall. Their bodies were exposed to constant cold, and neither could ascend or escape. Friends above tried communicating with them. Some stayed at the pit, others climbed out of the cave to get help. They reached their cars around 2:19 p.m. and called emergency services. A specialized rescue team arrived. Meanwhile, voices from Grant and Michael grew faint. After about 30 minutes, they stopped responding. Rescuers entered the cave. Some treated the other students for hypothermia. Others descended into the pit. Around 3:30 p.m., they reached the bottom and found both men hanging motionless in their harnesses. Neither had a pulse. Removing the bodies from the rope system took nearly 6 hours. Recovery was completed around 10 p.m. Plura cave diving accident. On February 6, 2014, 5 Finnish divers, Kai Kankinen, Patrick Grönqvist, Jari Huotarinen, Vesa Rantanen, and Jari Yu, embarked on a dangerous cave dive in Rana, Norway. Their goal was to traverse the Plura Grotta cave, one of Northern Europe's deepest and most challenging water-filled caves. The cave reaches depths of over 130 meters, with narrow passages and low visibility. Despite the risks, the divers were experienced, qualified technical divers. They had carefully planned every aspect of the dive. The team split into 2 groups to minimize sediment disturbance. Patrick and Jari Huotarinen were the first to enter the water. They descended through the icy waters of Plura Lake. Patrick and Huotarinen descended slowly, using scooters to conserve energy, and reached the deepest part of the cave. After checking their systems, they prepared to ascend. While ascending, Patrick noticed Huotarinen had become stuck. He rushed to help and discovered that Huotarinen's scooter cord was tangled between 2 rocks. After freeing the cord, Huotarinen panicked. Despite Patrick's attempts to help, Huotarinen inhaled cave water and drowned. Patrick, now alone and with limited bailout gas, had no choice but to leave his friend behind and begin the long ascent. Meanwhile, the second group, Kai, Vesa, and Jari Yu, had started their dive. They quickly reached the deepest part of the cave, but soon encountered difficulties. Vesa became stuck and frustrated, adding time to their dive. As they continued, they noticed signs of distress from Huotarinen's group. When Vesa reached the narrow passage, Vesa saw Huotarinen's body blocking the way. Vesa told Jari Yu Huotarinen was dead and tried to pass Huotarinen's stuck body. Jari Yu began panicking. Kai tried to calm Jari Yu, but the panic was uncontrollable. Jari Yu died, and Kai, now with 2 dead divers, had to make a hard decision. Vesa was struggling, and Kai believed Vesa wouldn't survive either. With little oxygen left, Kai turned back, leaving his friends behind to attempt a dangerous ascent alone. Patrick, still descending to the surface, continued his decompression stops despite growing exhaustion. After 90 minutes longer than necessary, he surfaced just in time to see Vesa coming up from the depths. The 2 made it to the dry cave. Hours later, Kai emerged but found no sign of his companions. Believing they had perished, he rested in his van. Around 2 a.m., Patrick and Vesa found him, relieved to see he had survived. The following day, authorities began investigating the deaths, calling in British divers to retrieve the bodies. However, the risks were too great, and the bodies were left in the cave. In the spring, Patrick, alongside others, returned to recover his friends. Due to injuries, Kai and Vesa couldn't participate. With support from Sami Pakarinen, Patrick finally brought Huotarinen and Jari Yu back to the surface, fulfilling their promise to honor their fallen friends. Weeki wachee cave diving accident. On December 25, 2013, Darren Spivey, 35, and his 15-year-old son, Dylan Sanchez, entered Eagle's Nest Sink, a deep cave system in Weeki, Wachee Springs, Florida. Both were experienced divers but had no cave diving certification. Despite this, they decided to explore the cave, known for its narrow passages and extreme depths. The initial dive went smoothly, and they reached about 150 feet below the surface. The cave became more challenging at this depth, with tighter spaces and less visibility. As they progressed, the pair began to struggle with their equipment. The freezing water caused their tanks to freeze up, affecting their air supply. Visibility was limited, and the cave's sharp turns made navigation harder. Despite these issues, they pressed forward, continuing to explore deeper into the cave. By the time they decided to turn back, their air supply was low, and the conditions had worsened. The exit route became more difficult to navigate. They tried to retrace their steps, but their movements were sluggish due to the freezing temperatures and failing equipment. The deeper they went, the more disoriented they became. They couldn't find their way back to the entrance, and panic started to set in. With limited air and no clear exit in sight, they attempted to move quickly, but they were too far into the cave to make a safe escape. As darkness fell outside, a search operation was launched. Dive teams entered the cave the next morning, looking for the pair. After several hours, they found Darren and Dylan's bodies about 200 feet into the cave, and it was clear that both had suffered from oxygen deprivation. The bodies were brought to the surface, and the cave was closed for further exploration. Investigators confirmed the cause of death as asphyxiation. Boesmansgat Cave Tragedy. Dive in the heart of South Africa lies Boesmansgat, a deceptively tranquil pool tucked away in the Kalahari Desert. But beneath the still water is one of the deepest freshwater sinkholes in the world, plunging down 282 meters into total darkness. And in January 2005, David Shaw, a record-breaking diver and airline pilot, returned there with a haunting mission. 10 years earlier, a young diver named Dion Dreyer had blacked out from carbon dioxide buildup and drowned at 270 meters. His body had been left there, unrecovered. The cave was simply too dangerous, but David Shaw was not like most divers. He had already broken the world record by diving that deep into Boesmansgat and found Dreyer's body during that record-setting descent. Instead of ignoring it, he made it personal. He wanted to bring Dion home. So, on January 8, 2005, Shaw suited up with rebreathers, bailout cylinders, and a helmet camera. His close friend and fellow diver, Don Shirley, monitored the dive from the surface. Shaw planned to reach Dion's body in 13 minutes, secure it in a custom body bag, and ascend slowly with stops along the way. He made it down. He reached the body. But that's where everything started to go wrong. Dion's corpse, after 10 years underwater, had become buoyant. As Shaw tried to bag it, the body wouldn't sink. It floated and twisted, pulling the lines and tangling around Shaw's equipment. The struggle intensified. Shaw began to breathe faster, and his rebreather couldn't keep up. His hands moved slower. His buoyancy shifted. And then, silence. He lost consciousness at the bottom of the earth. Don Shirley, watching Shaw's dive computer tick past the expected time, realized something was wrong. He suited up to go after him. On the way down, Shirley suffered a CO2 hit himself, barely surviving the return ascent. 10 minutes later, Shaw's lifeless body still sat beside Dreyer's, camera recording everything. But the cave had one final twist. Days later, during another recovery attempt, Shaw's body floated up, along with Dion's. The lines had finally slipped. And just like that, the two divers were returned to the surface side by side. If you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe and like. Comment down below what you think is the most painful cave death tragedy.